I have a question regarding what does halacha say regarding lab-grown vegan pseudo meat?
I don't know enough about exactly how it's made. To my limited understanding, though, the issue with lab-grown meat is, well, I'll give you the background. I won't be able to give you a bottom line because I don't know enough about it, but I'll give you enough understanding that I think you'll have the tools to get the answer. Meat, if it doesn't come from meat, if it's not born from an animal, it's not meat. If it's not born from a chicken, it's not meat. So if I make soy dogs, they're not meat. If I can grow a vegetable that the Talmud says there's a fish that shabuta fish, the Talmud says has identical flavor to pork. So that's not pork, right? So when I make something that tastes like meat, I can't say that that's meat. However, my issue starts in a different context. We know that when the Torah forbade eating meat with milk, the Torah said, "Lo tevashel gedi b'chalev imo." Don't cook a goat and its mother's milk. And from there we derive that an animal that's born from an animal, right, that you cannot eat its meat with milk. What about fowl? What about birds? So the Torah didn't talk about birds. So technically, from the Torah's perspective, I could eat bird meat with milk. The Rabbi said, people don't discern between this type of meat and that type of meat. So if people are going to eat chicken meat with milk, they're going to end up eating animal meat with milk. So the Rabbi said, okay, rabbinically, the rabbis prohibited chicken meat with milk. Now, once you understand that, so then you're going to have a piece of steak on your barbecue, and it's going to look just like steak. And they're going to get to the point where you can't discern between a regular steak and a lab-grown steak. That's where they want to get to, right?
I mean, what about like the labeling of the thing?
So let's go one step at a time. Okay, so I'm just saying when we approach the question of lab-grown meat, our question really, biblically, that's not meat. You know, it tastes like meat, it looks like meat, but it's not meat. The issue begins, am I still allowed to eat it? Can I make myself a cheeseburger? What's going to happen when I have a cheeseburger? Everyone's going to look and say, Frankenthal's eating a cheeseburger, right? So who's going to discern between a lab-grown cheeseburger and a regular cheeseburger? So sometimes we say, look, I got to be smart. I got to be a step ahead of where things will end up. So again, from the Torah, that's not meat. What do you want? That's not meat. But that doesn't mean that we can now treat it as a vegetable or as as something that's parv. Because if you look a step ahead, you see where it's going to end up.
So I have two questions.
Wouldn't that already be the case with the parv cheeses that we have, and let's say the Impossible Burger that we have? In other words, if I saw you walking down the street eating a cheeseburger, 50 years ago I would have thought, "What, you're eating a cheeseburger?" Now we'll just take a look and say, "Oh, he must have had parv cheese, or it's impossible."
So
I've had vegan cheese with back in there was a special pizza place where they had vegan cheese, and I was like, okay, vegan cheese with meat toppings is fine.
So the truth is it's not. The truth is it's not. What it says in halacha is that if you want to eat meat and drink a cup of soy milk, there has to be something there while you're doing it that shows it's soy milk, meaning the bottle has to be there. You're not allowed to walk down the street drinking a cup of milk and eating your hot dog, where the guy who looks at you has no way of knowing that what you're eating and drinking is not really meat and milk.
So if I hypothetically, let's say
now you understand that this has details, and I'm giving an oversimplification. We're touching on concepts tonight. We're learning concepts. Can
I ask a question similar? That's a much older question, actually. I read this one. It goes back hundreds of years. If you were to take a camel, I'm sure you know a camel has a what's it called? The digestive tract of a camel is that of a kosher animal, but they don't have a fully split hoof. But they have a partially split hoof. If I were to selectively breed camels so that eventually they would have that fully split hoof, would that be a kosher camel?
Oh.
Yeah,
because it's
So we have another concept. We have a few concepts that need to be addressed. The first concept, the Min actually discusses what would happen if a cow would give birth to a camel. What would happen if a camel would give birth to a cow? Meaning, if you have a species that's born that looks kosher, Meaning, when the Talmud says a camel that gives birth to a cow, it doesn't mean necessarily it's going to go moo. It means that camel gave birth to another camel with birth defects that actually is kosher now, right? It looks kosher. So we have a rule that's called hayotze min hatamei tamei. That what comes out of an impure or non-kosher animal is non-kosher. So even though technically you look at that camel or that cow and you say, that looks like a kosher cow to me, but that's not good enough.
Honey's not. Honey is kosher, but it comes out of a bee, which isn't.
That's another very good question. That's a very good question. Yeah. One answer to that question, the Talmud actually asked that question. The Talmud on that Mishnah, the Talmud asked that question. And one answer is you're right, but the Torah said it's permissible. The Torah said that you can eat honey. That's one answer, meaning you're right.
Dates honey, like dates syrup?
Oh, okay. Also good question. Also good question, right? Okay. You guys are going in line with the Talmud. Very good. I don't understand. I thought everyone's beginners. You're giving advanced questions to all of you.
Well, we're beginners, which means that we haven't been restricted to asking very specific questions. We're allowed to ask the stupid questions.
You should ask everything. These aren't stupid questions. You're going literally the course of the Talmud.
Rob. I mean, you make good points regarding eating pseudo fake vegan meat with like cheese and stuff. I mean, specifically, if you just eat the fake vegan meat on a plate alone, I have two questions regarding that. That alone, is that kosher? What bracha do we do for it?
Well, kosher. Why wouldn't it be kosher? I don't know. I don't know enough about how it's made, but I'm saying it's not meat.
So do we say shehakol? Do we say shehakol?
That would be shehakol.
Yeah. I think they take like cells of thing and they duplicate it well enough to where it's like a brick of meat, but not slain from an animal. And halachically, that's not meat, right? It's not meat.
I don't know enough about how it's made. I just don't know the science of it yet.
Oh my God!
I think it's if you have one slice, it's missing.
I'm not having one.
I don't want to thank you. But I'm not thank you. Still recording. Okay.
Right there it says live. That's your lapse time. That's your viewer count. So someone's watching.
Okay.
I'm doing hamotzi because
you made hamotzi on the bread.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You do get comments. I just want to warn, comments will appear here. We do get a couple.
Sit down.
My sauce.
Sit down. Everybody's gonna have pizza. Don't
They
worry.
comment just ignore it.
Now we have two viewers.
Yeah.
Welcome to our second viewer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody can get pizza.
For those who have joined us, we'll just show you a little bit of what's going on here in Kochaav Ya'acov. Maybe you'll join us.
I wish they put vegetables on.
Just hit this button and it'll switch to the back camera.
That's fine.
This is the spices.
Rabbi, you want to say hi?
This is
Oh, it's his.
Come on, I brought it.
I have the spices.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Rob is getting new phone call.
I know, but I'm with you.
Oh,
Don't say hi.
You did it hundreds of times. Fine, here, do it then.
Okay.
What do you think of a person making a
We need any more pizza up that way?
Oh, that's wow. So many good questions. When you weren't here, the questions that flew were very good. Thank you. I'm not eating. Yeah. My friend is the owner. My chavrusa. We learn at night. Yeah. Okay, so someone went and bought, how do you say chatzil in English? Eggplant, right? Someone went and bought an eggplant, and as they left the store, they said bari pradam, and they took a bite. So, someone's.
Has anyone here ever eaten a raw eggplant?
Yes.
Alexander Barrow says hi.
No, but the grilled one is delicious.
Oh, you joined us. Yeah. Okay. So we have when we make a blessing, so it says you can tell how educated a person is based on their blessings. When a person starts learning, so So they can't remember all the blessings. Everything they say, Shehakol Nia B'Dvaro. Okay, they fulfilled their obligations. But the more you learn, the more accurate your blessings are. You know, there's a rabbi I know, this story you might have read somewhere, but I know the person, it's a true story, that decided he's not counseling couples anymore. And they asked him why. And he said, because I tried and I just don't get it. So they asked him, what do you mean? He said, a couple came before me. They'd been married 20 years. And the wife says, I can't handle him anymore. So the rabbi says, what's wrong? So she says, well, he never tells me he loves me. So the rabbi looks at the husband and he says, is that true? So the husband says, certainly. So he says, so he says, why not? So the husband says, what do you mean? When we got married, I told her I loved her. If it'll change, I'll let her know. Nothing changed. So the concept of a blessing is a reflection. A person can come home and tell his spouse, you're great, and move on with life. But what happens if he says, you know, you're great, and I appreciate that you bring up our kids, and I appreciate that you did the shopping, and I appreciate that you ironed my clothing. And when you get specific, that sort of shows you mean what you're saying. So blessings are the same way. It says the more learned you are, the more accurate your blessings are, because you actually care to show your appreciation. So in the laws of blessings, we actually have details of how you're supposed to do it. What blessing do we make on a vegetable?
Ha'adama.
Is he right or is he wrong? He said ha'adama.
Yeah, that's rules.
Okay. So now I'll ask you a trick question. When would you make?
I don't think you make a bracha at all because it's not in its proper form.
Oh, so what's your name?
Ezra.
Ezra from where? Remind me.
Washington.
Wow. So Ezra from Washington
It
says.
even says that for an onion, if it's not cooked, you don't make a shahako on it.
Very nice. So Ezra from Washington is telling us that in order to make a blessing, the fruit or vegetable has to be in its prime edible form. If most people don't eat it in that form, so then it doesn't get its unique blessing of Adama. Meaning, I had an interesting thing last night. I was hungry, and I was cooking sweet potato. And someone had told me that you could eat it raw. So I had peeled sweet potato in front of me instead of carrots. I took one and I started eating it. And guess what? It was very delicious. I ate half a sweet potato, just slicing it and eating it like chips. I discovered it's not bad. Now, wait a second. Did any of you ever eat a raw sweet potato?
I have.
Oh, I have some friends in the crowd. Okay. But for most people would think that's not the way you usually eat sweet potato. The same is true with an eggplant. So the halacha says that if you're eating something in the way that most people don't usually eat it, so then the blessing it gets is a shehakol, because it's not the prime form of the fruit or vegetable. However, what happens when the guy, he walked out of the supermarket, he wiped off his eggplant, he made a hadama and took a bite. Now, the guy saying next to him says, wait a second, that's not a hadama. You didn't cook it yet. I have a question. Did he lie or did he tell the truth? He said, blessed are you, Hashem, who created the fruit of the ground. Is that true or not true?
Yeah, he did.
So what would happen if he would say a blessing who created the fruit of the tree? Is that a lie? That has nothing to do with this eggplant. But when he said the fruit of the ground, what he said is accurate. This is the fruit of the ground. And that's why the Chafetz Chaim, you guys heard of the Chafetz Chaim?
Yeah.
Okay, did you know that the Chafetz Chaim got married twice against his will? Did you know that the Chafetz Chaim was forced into his first marriage and his second marriage?
Oh, that's abusive.
The Chafetz Chaim was orphaned as a child, and when he was young, when he was a kid, so his mother got remarried, and the new husband had a daughter, and when the Chafetz Chaim was about 15, everyone started being impressed with him. He was very serious about his learning. They were so impressed with him, people don't know this, that at the age 19, he had a breakdown. His son writes this in his biography. The Chafetz Chaim learned so well that he had a breakdown where he couldn't even read a siddur. He couldn't daven. He couldn't concentrate on anything. And this is recorded by the biography his own son wrote. It's a very interesting biography. And he went between a year and 2 years where he couldn't learn or read anything. He just couldn't focus his mind. And when he recovered, Baruch Hashem, so he took it upon himself never to concentrate for longer than 4 or 5 hours at a time. And he said, that should never happen to me again. And
Happened 4 or 5 minutes.
and all his learning, he was always careful not to answer his smartphone, 4 hours, 5 hours, and then answer the smartphone. He lived before smartphones, right? He died in the 1930s. There's an obituary of his in the New York Times. It's worth looking up, right? The New York Times wrote about the Chafetz Chaim when he died. So the Chafetz Chaim, you can look it up. It's you just do a search. New York Times obituary Chafetz Chaim. So the Chafetz Chaim, when he was a youngster, so his stepfather said to his stepmom, "Convince your son to marry my daughter." Well, his mother said, "I don't know that it's a good idea." And one day the Chafetz Chaim comes home and his mother's in a corner crying. And he says, "Ma, what happened?" So she said, "Your father wants to divorce me." And he said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, he says if you won't marry his daughter, then he's going to divorce me." So he said, "Then what's the problem? I'll marry her." And that's how he got his first wife. And with her, he remained until she passed away.
Was there any?
And he was an old man. He built his family, right, with a wife that he never chose. And he was the sweetest of husbands, right? Very dedicated, very well known for his very, very good behavior towards his wife. They even spoke about it in his eulogy. What a kind husband and patient husband he was. And then, when he was an old man already, so he moved.
Can this gentleman just say hello and say?
Wow!
This gentleman is called Amichai Hornstein. He was one of my top students. 1 second. We're talking 7, 8, or 9 years ago. 10 years ago. I'm getting older. Introduce yourself, where you're from, and how was it in Machon? Sure, Amichai. My name's
Amichai Hornstein. I'm originally from Canada.
We're in Canada.
Just outside of Toronto, a place called Burlington. So I came to Israel, came straight to Machon Meir, and then eventually, Baruch Hashem, I followed Rabbi Frankenthal from Machon Meir to Kochaav Ya'acov, and we've been here since.
You're happily married with.
Baruch Hashem, we now have 4 children.
Wow. And your profession, Amichai?
I work in QA at a company called Rappaport.
QA.
QA, like
QA is not question and answers, is it?
No, it's checking. It's like a high-tech company. The company's high-tech, the job's high-tech.
And part of his profession is learning Torah at 5 in the morning in the Beit HaMidrash. 5:15.
Try to do before that.
Okay. So Koch Amichai, a lot of Shech.
1 second. Amichai has a tip or two to tell us.
Okay.
How do you succeed when you join a community? What's the secret? Because Amichai is today the manager of the whole shul. Amichai is today responsible for all the logistics of the shul. Now, just so you have a picture, we run in this shul over 100 shiurim every week. We have in the shul. We're coming close to 200 shiurim a week right now. Amichai is responsible for everything, all the logistics of this shul. Now, Amichai came from Machon Meir. Tell us a tip or two of how
he grew up.
So, I'll tell you, every time someone asks me what the community is like, I say, it's like everywhere you go, the community is going to be whatever you put into it. The only way if you're going to be someone that's going to be a hermit, they're going to be in their house, they're going to be hiding away from everybody. So it's going to be a cold place, but the more you get involved, the more you join in, the more you can contribute, the more everyone's going to get out of it. It's something that's the fun day. You see everywhere they're going from city to city, making sure bringing people close to the Torah, and making sure that they're being mishutaf with all of them. So it's a very special place.
Where Machon Meir? You recommend it?
I recommend it.
Okay. You hear that, Ariel?
I don't think I'm going there.
Very interesting.
Ariel Avidar made Aliyah with his dear wife and kids. He's living in a community, and he cannot stop coming to Machon Meir even though he has work to do during the day.
I can't. There's no up here anywhere else other than the yeshiva.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm glad to see that it's starting to grow back up again. After
Yes.
Corona, the people are going back there as well.
Bezrat Hashem.
Baruch
Baruch Amichai. Thank you, Amichai. Very happy to see you.
I think what Amichai said is a key that I told it to the kids who come to our shul also. I said, people want to be a part of the family. How do you become a part of the family? I know. You show up for a Shabbos meal, you say, thanks, that was great, and you leave. I said, no, you want to be a part of the family, stick around and clean up afterwards. When you contribute, you're a part of the family. Amichai came here and hasn't stopped contributing since he came. So he's a major part of the community. People want to be a part of something. You should know when you contribute, when you give of your time, you give of yourself. So that's when you become a part of something. And the same thing is true in relationships. You know, you wanna love your wife? Give her something. When you do for someone else, then you become fond of that. That's by the way, Ben Franklin was onto that too. Ben Franklin once said, if you want someone to like you, ask them for a small, doable favor. If you want someone to like you, Ben Franklin said, ask them for something small and doable. When they do for you, they will like you. That was Ben Franklin. I'm saying Chazal say it, but Ben Franklin said it too. So we were in the middle of who? Who are we discussing? Chafetz Chaim, right. Does anyone know his full name?
Meir Kagan.
Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan of Radin, right, from the city of Radin. So he's an old man, and he tells his son, you know, I'm finding it difficult living alone. So his son moved to Radin from the town, from the city he was in. He moved to the village of Radin, and he was with the Chafetz Chaim. And after a year or two, his son's wife said, I don't like the village. I want to go back to the city. So his son said, Dad, I found a wife for you. And he found himself getting hitched. He got married a second time, so to speak, forced by his family members a second time in his life. And they write in the biography that he thanked his children profusely when they wanted him to get remarried. He said, how many more years do I have left to live? I'm already in my 70s. What's left? He ended up living well into his 90s. And he thanked his children. That he said, you know, you really enriched my life. So anyways.
Who did he marry? His son's wife?
No. He married, I don't know who they set him up with.
Okay.
They set him up with some wife. When they asked him, what type of wife do you need? What should we look for in a wife for you? So the Chafetz Chaim said, I need someone who knows how to cook potatoes. That's what he was looking for. That's all she needs to know how to do. I don't need culinary, you know.
That's more important than following halacha?
I guess that was a given. Following halacha.
My mother always told me, should to be Moshe, don't marry a beautiful woman. Because, you know, sometimes that goes away. When it's older.
When it's like,
don't marry a nice woman. You know, they can get kind of crabby. You marry a woman who knows how to cook. At least for your whole life, you'll have good food.
But it's real. In the shul of Rabbi Gon, you were saying you have to get married L'Shem Shamayim.
Oh, wow.
I think everyone there was super old. I was only young man.
Wow. So anyways, coming back to our original, what were we talking about? The chatzil, how you say it in English? Eggplant. So our original eggplant, the Chafetz Chaim says an interesting thing. He says, being that the truth is that the eggplant is Pri Adama, you didn't lie when you made the blessing. So even though if you would have asked us in advance, then the answer is you should have said a shehakol, because it's not the way you usually eat. That's not the way eggplants are usually consumed. But once you made the Hadama, says the Chafetz Chaim, you fulfilled your obligation. You don't fix yourself now and say shehakol. Once you took your bite, you made your Hadama, because you said the truth. You did make an honest to goodness blessing. Next time you'll make a shehakol if you're eating it raw. You say there? Was that clear?
So, I'd like to ask a question on that then. What about
Remind me your
oranges?
name.
David Israel.
What?
David Israel.
Yes, David.
So what would you say about oranges then? Because most people eat them juiced.
Most people?
Most oranges that are grown in the world.
Far more oranges go to juicing than eating as an orange.
But juicing, as opposed to eating raw, is not, technically, it's not like cooking it. So the fact that it's consumed without cooking makes it a ha'etz when you eat the raw fruit.
So I have a question about, considering that brachot are based on how most people eat it, what do we say that brachot are based on consensus, in a way, somewhat?
Yeah, in that sense, yeah. Yes, and it changes, you know.
Ruba de Alma.
Until 100 years ago, people ate orange peels.
What?
They didn't throw out their orange peels, they ate them.
Is that true? Really?
No, there's a delicacy, not delicacy, but it's
Where did the Rabbi eat
it's sweet.
Wait, what do you mean people throw out their orange peels?
You heard about that?
What?
I have
Dipped in chocolate, it's very common.
Yeah.
In the cabinet.
No, that's common. That's not what the Rabbi's talking. The Rabbi's saying people ate orange peels. I never done my
It's a
life.
candy, but I shouldn't.
I know that they use it in liqueurs and in chocolates.
You can candy orange peel.
Yes.
Nadia has something to say.
No, I can't. I take it back. I can't say because they do have what we just discussed with sugar, and it's covered with sugar, and those who are younger than most of us think that it's candy, but it's actually not. It's peels with sugar on it.
Right, so that's what's
But I don't
discussed
want
in
to give away too
halacha.
much because then one of my tricks will be lost.
So that's what the halacha discusses, yeah.
So how do you answer Hirsch's
Because some
question?
people
What was the
think that it's
question?
candy.
What if we go according to consensus,
Yeah.
but he likes enjoying orange peels?
Yes.
Would he recite a bird creates an orange peel today?
If the consensus today is not that way,
It's
so
not
today
that
is
way.
a shahada.
So aspects of brachot can change with time due to the
Yeah.
fact that consensus changes with
Yes,
time.
yes.
And then what would be the granularity of the community? Are we talking people in Israel? Are we talking the world? Are we talking world Jewry?
It's a very good question. It's a very, very good question. It's not clear. Rabbi Feinstein, in one response, considers that maybe we go by the continent. He says he's not sure, but maybe the continent defines it. He didn't think it's limited to your city, your locale. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
So it's
But,
subjective and open to interpretation how large the population we are basing the consensus on.
Right. I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question. I don't know.
So could we say that it's based on tradition?
No.
Or customs that define how large the population is and its location regarding the consensus that can vary the bracha.
I don't know. I hear you. I don't know.
This feels like a very Talmudic question.
משהו לפתוח את הלב, איזה שיר,
אני אשיר.
אולי ברכת המזל, ואז שיר.
Classic shit that we always enter our shulim in this. Achenu Avinu.
Alright, let's move this back here.
Who's a Cohen? Who's a Cohen? Would you like to become? Would you like to become?
How much?
Would you like to become?
No,
Ariel.
But your grandchildren could be Kohanim. If your daughter marries a Kohen, your grandchildren could be Kohanim.
But a non-Kohen Jewish man cannot marry a Kohen Jewish woman.
Why not?
So what does halacha say?
What?
How's the housing? Are you expensive?
It's cheaper than Jerusalem and bigger than Jerusalem.
What do you mean cheaper? We're doing your
I mean that per square meter you can get, you know, in Jerusalem this apartment would cost you 2,000. Over here it'll cost you 1,000, 1,500. In Jerusalem it would cost you 5. Here it would cost you 3. Saying that the apartment I live in,
Is Jerusalem bigger than here?
yeah, we have about 800 families in this yeshuv, and another 10,000 families in Tel Zion.
And where?
Tel Zion, across the street. That's why I said they built a Haredi city next door to us. Right, the rabbi of this yeshuv, the whole yeshuv was for giving them land that they should be able to build. So we're neighbors. A lot of the people you saw here learning come from there to learn here. And people from here go there to daven.
Do you
They have
guys
shtiba.
ever do a Simchas Torah together where you dance together or no? Or are they a little bit too far from here?
We can't even get these 3 shuls together. It's very hard to coordinate the time. Saying time-wise, it's very hard. And space-wise.
Ariel? What
So I'm going to say a riddle before we conclude. A riddle that my Rebbe told me when I was learning. You see 2 twin brothers walking down the street.
It's a riddle. It's a riddle.
2 twin brothers are walking down the street. And one of them has payas that are a little bit longer than the other one. One of them has his tzitzis hanging a little bit longer than the other one. One of them is always careful to carry a sefer in his hand when he's walking down the street. One of them is Yaakov, one of them is Esav. Is the one with the extra long payas, extra long tzitzis, always carrying a sefer, Yaakov or Esav? We'll discuss that after mention. Is that Yaakov or Esav? Which one is it? The one with the longer payas, the longer tzitzis. He's carrying the sefer.
Outward.
It would be Esau, because Yaakov is so safe and secure within himself. And Esau's always trying to convince other people that he's holy as well.
Right.
And longer pairs, longer sis, always safer in your hands. That is, there's no halacha ever says that.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Is everyone here? 1 second. Where's Moshe? Moshe?
The real one is Rav Kook. I forgot. Rav Kook was the real Hadifa.
David V'Chana, yeah.
חנה דוד.
זה המנון הזה.
כל עוד בלבב פנימה. כל עוד בלבב פנימה.
לא,
No, right. David, Hannah. Not Kochaav Ya'acov, right.
Wait, what are you looking for me?
Because now we went to the honor you. Answer to respond to the Zimun that
We're 10,
Ariel
yes?
is leading. Yes, we're 10.
Oh, sorry, I was plugging my phone in.
Boys, come say amen.
So while you guys bench, I'm going to go make sure we put back all the Sidurim we took upstairs.
רבותיי, נברך. יהי שם אדוני ברוך מלך העולם, ברשות מרנם רבותיי, נברך אלוהינו שהחלנו מבשלו. ברוך אלוהים שהחלנו מבשלו ובו גדול חיינו. ברוך אתה אדוני לעולם.
B'nei Ya'aleh v'yavo.
יהי לעולם כספו היו סליים מזון תמיד לעולם ועד.
Never come say Birkat HaMazon. It's a rabbi.
שם רב רחמן וברוך חסידיו כאמור פותח את ידיך ונותן לך רצון ברוך אתה אדוני זה לכל.
אמן.
נודה לך אדוני ברוך אתה אדוני על הארץ על המזון.
יעלה ויבוא.
קדושנו קדוש יעקב, ראינו ראי ישראל המלך הטוב והמיטיב בכל שבכל יום יבוא את
Hay que tener buenos. Yo listo bueno, ¿ya?
Rob, should I take down the screen? Yeah. Okay.